We welcome you back inside the Primetime Rundown, episode number 109 here on the Eastern Observer alongside Ian Schraier, Mike Szabo. I'm Joey Jarzynka. Our show is presented to you by Black Cats NYC. Be sure to download their newest hit single, Nothing's Gonna Stop Us, on the following platforms: iTunes, Pandora. It's also can be found on SiriusXM. You can also hear it on Spotify as well, and take a peek by searching Nothing's Gonna Stop Us on those platforms. Ian Schraier, good to see you, sir. How are things on your side of the island?
Well, nothing's going to stop us on this Friday night, Joey.
Amen to that.
Just had to insert my one dad joke for the night. Well, it's funny how this time last week we were discussing our picks and previewing the Super Bowl, and now the Super Bowl is come and gone, and we're talking pitchers and catchers reporting for spring training. I know Aaron Boone below me, Mike Szabo, below me, is very excited for what's going on down in Tampa. But between that and it's let's forge ahead. Really, it's time to talk a little more baseball and definitely a little more hockey.
We've got so much to discuss here tonight, but where's Aaron Boone over there? Oh, he's hailing a cab. Okay, he's heading down to Tampa. Mike Szabo, good to see you, sir. How are things on your side of this island?
Doing well. Just like Ian said, we're getting on to baseball season. We had some nice warmer days this week, so the weather indicative of the time of year. And of course, we always started off the week really great when your team lost. So my week was made right there. So,
well, it's funny, you bring up about my team losing. I think my team had taken your team out 38-7. But again, if you ain't first, you're last anyway. So it doesn't really matter. We're both in the same spot. We're both on the golf course with no trophy. And you brought up about the weather, Mike. A little bit of a problem there. Tomorrow it's going to be 25 degrees with a wind chill. Brutal stuff. So thanks for jinxing it. Unbelievable stuff. But of course, let's get things started here. Of course, as Ian brought up, and I'm trying to spew out the English here. We've got Super Bowl talk. We've got some coaches that have made some switches. Where does Derek Carr land? There's some new rumors about a potential defensive coordinator heading to Denver, not named Vic Fangio. So we'll have to touch upon that and look toward the Rocky Mountains, see what's over there. And then, of course, Major League Baseball, as Ian brought up, we'll talk about the Yankees, we'll talk about the Mets, we'll talk about some of the locals, in addition to some of the rule changes, too, which is absolutely crucial. We got a chance to see it today in college baseball, too. That was something that, personally, I got a chance to see, and I couldn't believe what we were seeing, too. It was really crazy since some of that was implemented there as well. And also, we will be rounding it out with the National Hockey League and the NCAA for the Big East Conference and St. John's, because I know that's what Mike really wants to talk about. So let's get things started here. And of course, yes, we have to recap the Super Bowl. I'm not too happy about it, but hey, listen, we roll on, and Fat Man got his second Lombardi trophy, and I am very happy for him. I am very happy for Andy Reid getting that long-deserved trophy, 38-35 victory. And again, Ian, you brought this up multiple times. And while I was pacing around my cousin's house, where I was watching the Super Bowl, you had brought up, obviously, over and over again, Jalen Hurts is just, he's a force to be reckoned with. And it's finally time to buy in. And I think after seeing that performance in the Super Bowl, I believe I have finally bought in.
Well, thank you for giving proper credit. About 16 weeks later, 4 months later, I appreciate that.
Give or take.
Right. I would say I know the NFL is not the NHL, and they don't give out the most valuable player award to a player who is on the losing side. And I can't really count back in my mind of how many times that probably should have happened in Super Bowls in the past. But I feel like this is the one Super Bowl I can remember in recent memory where maybe the Super Bowl MVP should have gone to a representative from the losing team, because Jalen Hurts we said last week how everything just rides on the quarterback in the National Football League. And for the Philadelphia Eagles, a team who just established, really, aside from Jalen Hurts' one rushing touchdown and him dialing up his own number for much of the game, that game belonged to Jalen Hurts. There was no doubt about it. He just made so many crisp throws. He made the changes, especially in the first half when the Eagles were just moving the ball seamlessly so well. And even in the second half too. I mean, I just don't think that there was at least aside from the sloppiness and the turnovers by either side, I really didn't see like a lot of hiccups by the Eagles offense. The only issue I had with the Eagles last Sunday was in the fourth quarter when they were down 8, was them all of a sudden turning to the run with about 5 minutes to go to finally try to establish something with Miles Sanders, when they had been going to Kenny Gainwell and even for a couple of plays Boston Scott for much of the night.
Yep.
Now, I don't know if that's indicative of Miles Sanders being hurt because his number was barely called during that game, but because usually when you're going to try to establish the run and you're all of a sudden going to try, if you're Nick Sirianni, to change your game plan, and with 5 minutes left and you're down 8 and you just don't want to hand the ball back to Mahomes and that Chiefs offense so quick because you're so worried you're not going to get the ball back. Obviously that was the biggest gamble for the Eagles on the night, but Jalen Hurts, he just played so well. He was so efficient on the ground and through the air. And I mean, I think it was like weeks ago there was talk about, let the Eagles trade Hurts. I think it's time to change that narrative.
Yeah, I was going to say it's definitely time to change the narrative, but also you bring up about Miles Sanders too, and that is also indicative of what potentially Nick Sirianni and the coaching staff thinks about Miles Sanders too, potentially moving forward. Keep in mind, he is an unrestricted free agent now, and that was right after the final whistle. He was no longer a member of the Eagles until a potential contract is signed, and it might not even be signed there, Mike. And you look on the other side and you look at Kansas City and you say to yourself, this team is just a second half machine. But was it really all Kansas City, or was it the Eagles just basically laying down and saying, all right, you guys could run all over us?
I think you got to give credit to Kansas City. I mean, time and time again, we've seen them in first half of a game or in these big critical games. They're down by whatever it is, 7 points, 10 points, and whatnot. And you just never count Patrick Mahomes out of a game. They're able to drive down the field really quick, score a lot of points, and lightning fast speed. And that first half was, other than the scoop and score by the Chiefs defense, that was utterly dominated by the Eagles that first half. And then Mahomes just turned it on. You only had, one incompletion for Mahomes the entire second half.
Mm-hmm.
They completely took over the last part of that game, and got to give credit to them. I mean, the Eagles defense tried as much as they could, but they gave up 24 points in the second half. So it was a game of two halves, really, the Super Bowl, and the Chiefs did just enough in the end to win. So we said it was going to be a high-scoring game. It was a little bit more high-scoring than we thought, and we got treated to a really good Super Bowl that, again, just Patrick Mahomes, again, just added to his legend. Especially, we saw, he was really healthy and all that. Well, right at the end of the first half, he wasn't as healthy as we all thought. That ankle was still bothering him, and yet he still, did what he needed to do to win the game.
Oh, there were a couple of plays also when the Eagles defensive line eventually got the pressure, but they didn't get a single sack on the game, which is absolutely crucial when they had 80 sacks coming into the Super Bowl, and they only needed about, I believe, 4 to match the 85 Bears, which that would have been truly remarkable to do so. That would have been the most amount of sacks by a single team in NFL history if that were to happen. But Ian, I mean, when you look at the defensive side of the ball, again, where do you give the credit to? You give it to, you give it to the offensive line of KC. Do you give it to Mahomes trying to, to really scramble out of the pocket? Where do you go there with Mahomes?
Well, I'm sure, Joey, you want to sit here and roast Jonathan Gannon all day and all night, but I think
maybe yes.
I thought I don't want to say that the Eagles didn't come with a good game plan, because I thought the way their defense played for 60 minutes was that they tried to avoid getting beat with the deep ball. Mm-hmm. If you notice what Mahomes, and this is where I kind of disagree with Mike a little bit about Mahomes sort of turning it on. I thought he just kind of took what the Eagles gave him. That's really what I thought what it was more than anything. He was able to march down the field because he just completely used the middle of the field. I mean, if you remember in the Juju Smith-Schuster didn't really get going until the second half. Kadarius Toney didn't really do anything. He had two catches. Well, one catch for the touchdown and the return. Didn't do none of their big receivers did do anything until the second half. It was Travis Kelce. It was their running game with Isaiah Pacheco. It was like he didn't have to. He really just used the middle of the field. That's really what worked. Is that they didn't need they didn't want to go up against James Bradbury, Darius Slay. And force them to go one-on-one on the outside and say, okay, let's beat Philly's best corners and really beat a defense, which the point you had made, Joey, about the comparison to the 85 Bears and to really put them in the same conversation with that type of royalty, because that's the kind of year that they had with respect to getting pressure on the quarterback.
Right.
That's
Statistics-wise.
Yes. But I think that's where I guess Mike and I disagree. Is just I thought Mahomes, considering his injury, really he did make a couple of nice plays with his feet. Granted, that 20-yard run towards the end of the game, especially that set up the field goal, the winning field goal. But to me, it was more that on a bad ankle, he was just able to make these intermediate throws, these throws over the middle, a lot of action to Travis Kelce. We saw a lot of pre-snap motion, especially on the touchdown and the 2-point conversion. All those little pieces is what made it really work for Kansas City. And I think that's something that really the Eagles didn't see a lot this year. They expected Kansas City to attack. They expected Mahomes to attack, and Mahomes took what was in front of him. And that's really, in my opinion, was really the difference in the game on Sunday.
Yeah, but I don't think they really figured that out until the second half, because the Chiefs offense had zero rhythm in that first half. They got a couple of drives that maybe it looked promising at first, but it petered out. They only had 3 points as an offense. The others was the scoop and score touchdown. Then in the second,
I agree there. I don't know if I agree there, because remember, Butker missed the field goal early in the first half, so you can make the argument instead of being down 10 at halftime, they're down 7. And that's not discounting anything the Eagles did offensively. Like I said before, Jalen Hurts was outstanding, and without question, if the Eagles win the Super Bowl, he is by far and away the most valuable player. But to sit here and I don't want to say that they didn't have any rhythm, but I thought I just don't think it was what was expected of the Kansas City offense. That's the thing. I think everybody expected a shootout, and it was pretty close to it. I mean, it wasn't scorigami, but it was pretty close. You got 38-35 out of this. I mean, it's not like, me and Joey's prediction last week was 27-21. We got 73 points in the Super Bowl. So I don't think we had a lack of scoring. I just think that in terms of what was expected from both sides of the field by both quarterbacks, considering Mahomes' experience in the Super Bowl, I think people expected more offense than what they saw from Mahomes.
The third highest Super Bowl in terms of scoring. The third highest. Keep that in mind too.
Yeah.
That's absolutely surreal. And you look back when the Eagles won the Super Bowl back in 2017, and again, my math is very bleak. 41-33 is 74. So yeah, I guess that would be right. 41-33 is 74. Yeah, there we go. Mental math within just, I don't know, 10 seconds. Not bad. It's got to be a record. Right, Mike? It's got to be a record.
Yeah, you get a star.
Yeah, thank you. I expect 2 gold stars next time. But again, you look back and you say to yourself, well, the last 2 Super Bowls that they've been in, it's been both shootouts. And like I said, I honestly believed that it would be, a lower scoring game. Not the case at all, but and I know that a lot of folks that are probably watching are saying, God, are you going to talk about this? And yes, we are going to talk about this. It's a tough blow towards the end of the game with James Bradbury holding Juju Smith-Schuster. And we know that it was a hold. We know that it was the correct call. But folks around the country on social media blasted the officials by saying it was the wrong time to call that when you have no idea what would happen the other way, and potentially that could have hurt ratings too when you really dive into it. I want to start with Mike first, because I have a few opinions about this, but I want to go to my guys first. Mike, we'll start with you. What do you think?
Oh gosh, there's
with
so
that?
much to dissect in that. First of all, referees are not going to worry about ratings, nor should they. That's not their job. What was the statement? The wrong call, or the right call, but at the wrong time. That to me is just ridiculously asinine. Like that, like a call is a call. Like you play the game by the rules. I don't care if it's 15 minutes left in the first quarter, if it's right at the beginning of the game or right at the end of the game. A hold is a hold at any point in the game. You call it the way by the rule book is.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I'm going to interrupt you for a second because there were a few plays during the playoffs, right? And I'm not talking about only Philadelphia, Kansas City. I'm talking about every single playoff game where these officials pretty much lay off a little bit. They lay off. Well, Mike, I'm going to throw it back to you. The rules are the rules, right? The rules are the rules. But why are you laying off in these other games and not the biggest game of the season?
That we'll never know. I completely agree with you there that consistency is an issue for the NFL, and it's probably been for a couple of years. I'm sure Saints fans would have loved that referee crew a couple of years ago in the conference championship. They're like, you gave that a hold. Where were you when my guy got his head taken off and there was no pass interference?
And that was and oddly enough, that was now Eagles safety Chauncey Gardner-Johnson on the play. But go on. It all comes full circle.
Consistency is definitely an issue. I completely agree with you with that. The NFL officiating consistency just seems to be all over the place, whether it's during a game or across multiple games or across seasons. Consistency appears to be an issue.
Sure.
But in that moment, I know everybody goes back to the one toward the end of the first half where that they let go on Bradbury.
Mm-hmm.
Where that should have been a pass interference, absolutely.
In the middle of the field, yes.
Maybe Kansas City is able to get far enough down for a field goal right at the end of the half, something like that. Obviously, that killed that drive. I understand the consistency there, but do you want them to really miss a call later on in the game? Because that should have been a pass interference. So toward the end of the game, do you really want them to miss that for the sake of, well, we didn't call that earlier? I get that, but we're talking about what, the 25 plus minutes of game time afterward. This isn't the immediate sequence. You don't want officials to miss yet another call. I mean, imagine if, I don't want to put it this way, but imagine if that call isn't made, right? Eagles come down and wind up winning. There's going to be the other half that is going to say, hey, we got screwed out of this call and whatnot. That would have wiped that completely off. So James Bradbury said it was a hold. It's case closed. To me, when the player who committed the foul said it was a foul and hoped he would let it go, I mean, it's case closed. You got to call what it is in the rules there. I don't want to see them continuing to miss calls.
Okay, Ian, you want to take over on this one?
Sure. I guess I have a couple of points to make. Let's discuss the whole swallowing or not swallowing of the whistle. Because as a Giants fan, I think it more than benefited Giants fans that Sunday night game in Washington when Darnay Holmes wasn't called for pass interference in the end zone, right? And Giant fans slept a little bit better that night, even with a guilty conscience, knowing that it should have been first and goal for the Commanders with a chance to send the game to overtime.
That's right.
But I do see Mike's point about if they didn't call one way, the argument would be against. And I know on Sunday, Joey, myself, DeLuca, Szabo, we were all having conversations about James Bradbury being the best corner in the league, and arguably he played like it. But it's just I thought it was almost ironic and purely coincidental that the play came down to that one player.
Future Giants legend James Bradbury. Round two.
I think that, like, someone made a nice comparison to like the National Hockey League and said that in the third period of the Stanley Cup playoffs, the officials will only blow the whistle for a penalty unless something is absolutely egregious, whether it's high sticking or tripping or something that warrants a penalty. Listen, I'm not going to come out here and say that the call that was made in that situation at that time, game in the balance, that it wasn't soft. All right. Like, yes, there was no doubt. If you want to sit there and analyze the rule of it, right? It's that the corner has 5 yards to make any contact he wants with the receiver. After that 5 yards, it's illegal contact. It's defensive holding. It's whatever it is. So did the official make the right call? Yes. But what I like most out of the situation, and then this is as an unbiased football fan, is that I like how James Bradbury came forward and said he did it. I like how, unlike their head coach, Nick Sirianni, I love how the Eagles kind of almost, and I hate to use the word lost, but really did everything with such class at the end of the game. They,
Who would think?
No, I'm. That's not me being being biased and thinking, oh, the team represents the city. No, I'm not going there. I think it's just more that, as much to the chagrin of Eagles fans, like I think it's just that I thought it was done so well. Like, I like watching that video of Jalen Hurts, like having his coach put his hand down and doing the mature things. Like, this is like, we could have a whole conversation about why I think Nick Sirianni within the next 5 years probably won't be the head coach of the Eagles if, God forbid, they start losing. Because I still believe in what Julian Love said, and I think last Sunday really, really proved it. But it's I think that's the piece about the Super Bowl that I really like the most is that you win with dignity and you lose with dignity. It'd be one thing if James Bradbury would be like, man, that was a soft call. I have so many issues with that. Why didn't they do this? Why didn't they didn't come up with reasons why they should have won. They just took complete accountability for why it is that they lost. And that to me is the biggest takeaway from this whole situation going forward, is that they didn't put it on the officials. Maybe the fans are putting it on the officials, but the players aren't putting it on the officials. And as a result, we're not seeing as much of that residue. We're not seeing as much of that reaction as we thought we might have seen after the Super Bowl.
Right. We're not seeing the Philadelphia Eagles fans walking around the street with traffic lights because, right, they're not happy, which is, again, a very good thing. And again, to all of those folks that work at Pennsylvania DOT, very good stuff that you don't have to be replacing traffic lights after a loss like that. But no, I look at it as an Eagles fan and I say to myself, there are times when if you're going to be consistent, stay consistent. Do not do certain things like that. But again, we did have a different angle that came out, I believe it was yesterday, Ian, from NFL Films that gave, I guess, a part of the Kansas City Chiefs, I guess their championship DVD that they usually come out with every year. NFL Films had a different angle that Fox did not get, and it showed clear cut that it was a hold, which is fine. Again, no issues there. I never said, and really, I think a lot of these competent. Well, actually, that's a very strong word there, but competent. Let's go with a lot of fans. We'll leave it at that. Fans for the Eagles, okay, would say flat out that no, it was not a hold or whatever, but then you eventually got to see, and I'm a part of a whole bunch of Eagles fan groups and whatever, and then eventually you saw where I couldn't believe it. Eagles fans were pretty classy about it, and they flat out said, yes, it was a hold, but if you're going to be consistent the entire game. Be consistent all 60 minutes. And if you're not, then hold it. Exactly what Ian said there about or using the comparison with hockey, I think is a fantastic thing that football should be, should be looking at. And I think the officials for so many years have been inconsistent. But then again, I also give them, in their defense, rules change every single year, and they change at a ridiculously fast pace where these guys, some of them don't even know their own names. And it's unfortunate because they don't, they don't know about a certain catch, what can be reviewed, what can't be reviewed, what is a hold, what isn't a hold, what is not an illegal contact or anything along those lines. Again, solid sportsmanship there by James Bradbury for saying that, but also something that that Ian and Mike did not say. What Bradbury did say was that I thought that he was going to get away with it. I did not believe that in that moment he would have gotten that call, which I believe a lot of folks thought the exact same thing.
Without a doubt.
Everyone thought that too. No one believed that he would have been called for that in that situation. Let the man score, and you have no idea what Jalen Hurts could have done on the other side, which would have made potentially one of the best Super Bowls the best if Hurts could have potentially came down, or then maybe you have exactly what Mike said. The Chiefs the other way may have, might be walking around with traffic lights throughout the city.
I will say, though, Joey, the one play that Hurts made, and he made a bunch of great plays all night, but that drive, that game-tying drive in the fourth quarter when they kept trying to establish the run with Miles Sanders, and at this point, whether Kansas City was trying to stack the box or there was single-man coverage, to run those running plays, to think to yourself, okay, they're just going to try to nickel and dime it down the field, try to leave as little time potentially for Mahomes, not say force overtime, but try to leave as little time for Mahomes. And then he airs that perfect ball to Devontae Smith for about 40 yards down the field. And I just remember watching the play as it was occurring. And I'm like, wow. Just never played in a Super Bowl before. The confidence and the way he just presented himself with all game, you're at the highest peak at this point. You've had a great season. Sometimes people say it doesn't matter what you do until you get to the Super Bowl. And to just make that decision in that moment, down 8, in order to make that kind of play call, to get Devontae Smith over the top, to set that whole drive up. Kudos. And that's not for later when we give our kudos, but just really kudos to Jalen Hurts for just playing such a strong game. Because I can't really it pains me as a Giants fan because he's my favorite quarterback in football. He is. I've said to you guys off camera before, I said he's the size of Kyler Murray, but he's got every little bit what Josh Allen does in terms of his arm strength, in terms of his accuracy, in terms of his ability to dial his own number, in terms of his ability to do so many things that he just makes from what for me is almost the perfect NFL quarterback, at least in this current era of football.
Mike, finish us off.
Yeah, I think it was a fantastic game. Like Ian said, it came, I think Philadelphia was great all night. Jalen Hurts, I think the argument was made there that he was the best player on the field. Kansas City, like you said, they scored plenty of points in that second half, did just enough. The calls will go on forever and ever, and the conversation around that will go on forever and ever. I thought we got treated to a really, really good game, a really fantastic Super Bowl, and, hats off to the Chiefs.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, now today, we got a chance to see one move that has been coming for a very, very, very long time, and that is Kansas City Chiefs offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy, who's gotten a lot of opportunities and a lot of job interviews, but simply could not get that final offer. He finally got it today from Washington, from the Commanders, and he got not only a raise, but also a title raise or title promotion, if you will, as associate head coach / offensive coordinator. So that's a big deal. In addition, Shane Steichen, the Eagles offensive coordinator, was hired as the new head coach on Monday in Indianapolis. Jonathan Gannon was hired as the new head coach in Arizona, the former Eagles defensive coordinator, on Tuesday. Baltimore hired Todd Monken as the new offensive coordinator, who spent the last few years with the Georgia Bulldogs, helping Stetson Bennett get a couple of national championships. We'll get to that later on. And again, those 4 names, guys. Ian, I want to start with you. Those 4 names, I guess. What do you feel is the biggest impact, if you will, on those 4 coordinators becoming, 3 of those coordinators moving teams?
it's tough to tell with respect to the Eagles because there's just that factor of these aren't guys necessarily from the Andy Reid tree, but also like it's hard to really tell when these guys come from coordinator jobs to being a head coach whether or not they're going to succeed. It just takes time, and especially for
cough cough Nathaniel Hackett. Go on.
For guys like Shane Steichen, and Jonathan Gannon, who almost, inherited what Howie Roseman constructed, and really in terms of experience. We've said it before and again that really they just had to kind of put the babysitters in place and let the guys play. I'm not trying to say that these guys won't succeed where they're going especially for the two Philly coordinators now going to Indianapolis and Arizona, where they have their own work to do. The Colts are looking to make a change and draft a quarterback. Arizona, you've got an unhappy quarterback and a defense that's really given up a lot of points. I'd say the one name that stands out to me the most is Eric Bieniemy, and I'm not going to sit here and argue left or right about why the man doesn't have a head coaching job yet. But I think the one thing this does, though, is this gets him out of the shadow of Andy Reid. That's really what makes this appointment very interesting. He's going to a team like the Commanders within a very competitive division where, unlike Kansas City, the quarterback situation is very much in limbo. You drafted Sam Howell last year. Taylor Heineke got hurt. What's Taylor Heineke's future? Carson Wentz are we officially going to pull the plug? We do not know coming into next season who the QB1 is for the Washington Commanders, and that leaves a lot of question marks. There's a lot of weapons, a lot of good skill players: Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Logan Thomas when he's healthy. A lot of different options for the Commanders to be able to spread the ball around and be able to move the ball effectively offensively. But the problem for the Commanders has remained the same problem that we've seen for some other teams in this league, is that there's just no consistent play at quarterback. And I think if Bieniemy can transform and, I'm not saying whoever they bring into Washington is going to be the next Patrick Mahomes. I don't think that's the case at all. But I think if he can find a way to rejuvenate that offense and turn it into something respectful that will put the Commanders consistently kind of for about 11, 12 weeks like they were this year, but for the full effect of the season to keep them in the playoff picture, I think he will even start to raise more eyebrows at the fact he's not doing it with a guy named Mahomes as his QB.
That's definitely a good point. Mike, where do you see with those three coordinators moving and that fourth coordinator moving from college, who at one point was a part of the NFL, back to the NFL?
Yeah, just to expand on the Bieniemy one, I think it always had been out there, whether the rumor is true or not, of, is Andy Reid calling more of the plays and this and that, and probably why, maybe it's good for Bieniemy just to have a coordinator position somewhere else that, somewhere like Washington, whoever the QB is, if they have some solid play, let's say.
Do we lose Mike?
More looks at the at a head coaching position. So that's my point on Bieniemy there. I know we also had Steichen hired in Indianapolis. So I think that's interesting. I'm sure they hope they're going down the Philly route again, Indianapolis. Hopefully it doesn't winds up a lot better than it did with Frank Reich. So it's interesting. I think exactly as Ian said, there's a lot of hits or misses when it comes to coordinators becoming head coaches, but I think interesting moves for all of those involved.
Gonna have to repeat that Bieniemy line because you went completely silent there, and we actually screenshotted your face like this. Go on.
Yeah, I think I saw a blip in the Wi-Fi for a sec, but I think we're good now.
There we go.
But yeah, just to expand on the Bieniemy point once again, I think exactly like Ian said, there always been the rumor out there, whether it's true or not, that is Andy Reid calling more of the plays than Eric Bieniemy out there on offense and whatnot. So I think even though it's a lateral move, I think it's good for him just to get out of Kansas City and have some success with developing a quarterback and getting some success out of a quarterback on his own, that if he does so in a place like Washington, that, I mean, let's face it, hasn't had solid quarterback play in eons, and the RG3 era was a hot minute itself. So it's been a while there in Washington. He does that, he'll definitely get some head coaching shots.
All right, this is just one of those hot take questions that I need to ask Mike, because Mike is Mike, as we all know, is a baby in here. Mike, I'm going to ask you this: do you know who Rex Grossman is?
Ooh, that's really going back. That was like what, early 2000s?
All right, close enough. That's fair. More like mid 2000s.
At least he's in the era.
Exactly. I was gonna say that's solid. But
that was when I seriously was a baby and eating applesauce or whatever.
Oh, good Lord. All right. Well, I'm so glad I brought this up. But going back to the point though, about you look at the offensive coordinators moving over. I look at all three becoming eventually, and again, I don't want to call them stars. I think Jonathan Gannon will be the biggest failure in Arizona. I believe Shane Steichen will eventually get things on the right track, but he's got to have a solid administration, drafting key guys and, moving around some guys and figure things out. It's going to be probably a 3-year deal or a 3-year succession plan type thing. If they can, stick with it, unlike Houston, where they've had 4 coaches in as many years. And they've literally, stayed back in 2016 for the last 6 years.
It's just unfortunate that it looks like Jonathan Taylor is almost going to get kind of the Saquon Barkley treatment a little bit, because that team's in full rebuild now. So it's tough to see a guy, again, one of the best running backs in the league being kind of subjected to a tough go of it these next couple of years, probably for Indianapolis.
Well, it's very funny that you bring up about potential, having this guy and Jonathan Taylor like the Barkley, but you look at, I want to move over to Baltimore for a quick second, because from what a lot of folks have been gathering is that this new offensive coordinator in Todd Monken, who spent the last few years transforming University of Georgia and getting them to back-to-back national championships. He was in the NFL a few years prior. He was with the Bucks, I believe 2016 to 18. They were not great, but there's some chatter also that Todd Monken, being the new offensive coordinator, could potentially keep Lamar Jackson in the fold. There were some rumors going around too that Lamar Jackson may be out the door. There were some rumors also what the Ravens may want in return for Jackson. But now those rumors have kind of dwindled a little bit with the signing of Monken as the new offensive coordinator. Ian, I'll throw this one to you, and then we'll move on to Derek Carr. Does this Monken signing, does it help the Lamar Jackson situation? Does it worsen it? What do you see here? Is he gone? Is it a foregone conclusion that he's gone? What do you see?
I'm not so sure. I guess if you want to sit here and play devil's advocate and say, sure, he's been the offensive coordinator for the last 2 national championship teams and led Stetson Bennett, a guy who's probably going to be, I mean, again, not to take the negative side here, Stetson Bennett's probably going to be a 4th round draft pick, and I'm not trying to sit here and blow up his stock, because look at Brock Purdy.
I think that's pretty high. I think a 4th round draft pick is pretty hhy for Stetson Bennett, who couldn't even complete a pass years ago.
I mean, he's not going to be a 6th. I think he's or a 7th. I mean, he's going to probably be about a 4th or a 5th. But if you want to sit here and play that game with yourself, I mean, yes, he's a guy with NFL experience, but not a lot of successful NFL experience. And you're going to start taking coordinators and coaches from college. I mean, we've seen how that works in the NFL and how much of a failure that's been. Matt Rule probably being the biggest example recently. If you want to, I mean, I don't want to throw Chip Kelly's name in that mix, but Matt Rule especially, where we've seen coaches say, oh, this guy's going to be able to transition no problem. And, even though, look, Brian Dable was on Nick Saban's staff at Alabama, but Will it keep Lamar there? I mean, Greg Roman was a good offensive mind. I mean, from the teams that he had coached in the past, and he was always a guy who could work with just about any quarterback in the NFL. It seems like Greg Roman has a very good track record of success. I know he stepped away. It's hard for me to see Lamar going unless there's a break there between him and Ozzie Newsome. Just because Ozzie Newsome has done such a tremendous job in his years as the general manager of the Baltimore Ravens. And I always say they have the best drafts every year. They find these diamonds in the rough. They're always the ones who trade down. If they don't like what they're going to pick, they recoup more picks. And then all of a sudden in like the third round, they get this guy who's just been dropping and dropping. And they're the team that trades back up later in the draft to go grab the guy that you really wanted. So they're scouting. I mean, there would have to be a rift there. It seems like there might be, but I think there's a lot of questions still about Lamar Jackson and how much money he feels he's also eventually going to be owed and whether or not the Ravens want to pay him. So I'm a little 50-50 there, Joey, about the future of Lamar Jackson. If it keeps him there, great. I mean, if I was him, I wouldn't want to leave Baltimore. I mean, this is a team that is continually contending for the AFC North. I have no doubt it'll stay that way in the future. He's beloved in that city, Lamar. So, but I'm 50-50 about if this is really going to make any change or not. I'd be curious to see what the relationship is like between him and the GM.
Yeah, I look at exactly what you said, Ian, and about where Ozzie Newsome and the entire Ravens organization, they're one of the best draft teams. I wouldn't be surprised if ever. So especially with what you've gotten out of Tyler Huntley too. I mean, I would think, if they don't want to pay Lamar Jackson, I would say it's a foregone conclusion that you ship him to New Orleans or wherever the case may be. That needs a quarterback, or a Tampa, or a San Francisco, or not San Francisco, or those pretty much those two teams. You could even you could make the case with Indianapolis too. You wouldn't trade in the AFC too, but you could get a haul back for him, and you could do a lot with that and build around Tyler Huntley.
They could also choose to just not do anything with him either. I mean, they could choose to pull, the Antonio Browns, the Le'Veon Bells, and sit there and stash him instead of having him torture them if they don't feel that they want to. Like, because I mean, as long as he's under their control, I mean, the Ravens can ask for whatever they want for him. And I again, this all goes back to the same conversation we've had about Ozzie Newsome. Like, he's going to put that team in a position to win, and if not, he's going to set up a plan to establish them to win. So, the Ravens could also go that route and just stash him until they feel that they either want to trade him or becomes a free agent. And by that point, you're taking an opportunity on a guy who might not have started a game for a year or two, and maybe you feel you really want to stick it to him, and then he gets paid less, and you become a little more cautious about a guy who's been out of the league long enough where you say to yourself, is this guy still the same Lamar Jackson? So the Ravens have more of the outs here than Lamar does.
Mike, you want to finish us off with that?
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think the Ravens, I think they would be wise to even look at a succession plan for afterward. Whether you build around Tyler Huntley or he's a bridge quarterback, I guess, to someone you draft or get later on, wherever that may be, whether it's this year, next year, etc. He hasn't been available, Lamar Jackson. He's been quite injured, at a position where you can't really be injured that often. So much predicates around the quarterback position, and he just hasn't been available. So I wouldn't be comfortable if I'm the Ravens to throw whatever the going rate is, $40 million, whatever he's asking for at him, when he hasn't been really that available. I don't think it really justifies it. So I think they should just sit back, try and see if someone would want a deal for him, try and get the best deal you can. If not, continue to run it down, and you can be competitive with Tyler Huntley. They just made the playoffs and nearly beat Cincinnati.
Hold on a second. I'm just looking this up, and I think we all had it wrong. He's a free agent.
Is he?
I thought they could tag him, and then they would result in a trade, no?
There you go.
So
could do that, but yes, he is.
Everything was still predicated on a trade, though, Joey. I guess we were wrong.
Yeah, he is a free agent right now, and the Ravens have $27 million in cap space.
See ya.
Could be. You never know. It's very possible on where he can
I would
land.
not blink. I would not blink.
I mean, especially if he wants 40, let's say, give or take 40. And not only that, too, you look at kind of what we were talking about off camera, where Daniel Jones might look at, or Geno Smith might look at 35, right? 30 to 35 million, right? Geno Smith and Daniel Jones. And I would say you would probably start 5 million more than what those two are getting if you're Lamar Jackson, despite the injury history that Lamar has. Because I think Lamar's got a lot more upside despite the injury history than both Geno and Daniel Jones combined.
Lamar has the ability to ask for top tier money. He presents he's a dual threat quarterback that has a tremendous amount of upside in comparison to if we're going to sit here and make the comparison to Geno and Daniel Jones. He's just got
in terms of money.
Yes. Like, he's dual threat. Has the ability to lead a franchise. I don't think there's any question about that. I wouldn't even say 5 million. I would put him at the max at 40 a year. He has every ability to ask for that. I'm sure they would have to negotiate it down maybe a little, but he has every reason to ask for that kind of money.
They probably would push more incentives and try and reduce the guaranteed money in that sort of scenario.
Yeah, definitely could be something there. But guys, this weekend, tomorrow, actually, Derek Carr is making a trip to the Big Apple. He will be talking with the New York Jets. Is this where he lands? Possibly. I know Woody Johnson has wanted to bring in a veteran quarterback, and as we all know, there is the continuous rift between ownership, between the coaching staff, and that has been for as many years as Mike Szabo has been alive. That's also why the Jets haven't done anything in a very long time. And you look back, they are on the I believe, the longest stretch of an active NFL team that has not made the playoffs. I think that was 2010 when they made the AFC Championship game?
It was 2009, 2010.
Yeah, exactly. So 09 and 10, that was nearly 12, 13 years ago, even 14 years ago. So it's a long time, a long, long time. Does Derek Carr get it done here in New York, or does he have just a quick lunch out here and leave? Ian, start with you.
If Aaron Rodgers is not the next starting quarterback for the New York Jets, it's probably Derek Carr. I think Woody Johnson has already come out and said that they plan. I mean, they're going to talk to him already. He might not leave there without a contract tomorrow. Even though I think that would be very not spiteful, but I think that would be poor judgment from the Jets to not. Because they're already inquiring about Rodgers. I think they've been doing that. I think since even before the Super Bowl, to see exactly what it would cost from Green Bay to get Rodgers here. Because when you look at the other available teams Derek Carr has at his disposal in terms of teams that have vacancies, obviously Vegas is no more. The Jets, who we just discussed. Carolina. This is a guy who's still looking to win. So Carolina, Carolina, forget it. The other team, Tennessee. You've got Derrick Henry. You've got a couple of offensive weapons. Defensively, they're a very poor team. But you do have the right coach there. So if you're looking for, it would be I think it wouldn't be the worst move for him. I guess you would say it's the second to worst. And then you've got New Orleans, which also is an interesting option for him. But I think he's a Jet if Rodgers is not.
That could be something. But again, you Mike, you look at the other teams too. You look at the teams like let's see, you look at Tampa. You look at teams like let's see. My goodness, Houston. No, Houston will be drafting. Indianapolis, you could do. there are a decent amount of teams out there that need quarterbacks. Oddly enough,
Indy, if I was Indy, you've already run the gamut now on 2 veteran quarterbacks that have both fallen flat on their face. Why would you go a third time?
Pittsburgh?
Interesting.
Mike Szabo, take it away.
Oh, that's an interesting one. That's the first time I've heard that one.
Because it has not been reported, because you keep hearing that, especially with their track record, Pittsburgh, that is, they always draft those good QBs. Do they go down that route, or do they have a stopgap and maybe draft someone?
Well, maybe they believe in Kenny Pickett that much.
That's very possible, but that's like me believing in a Subway sandwich is not going to go through me. Go on. Go on.
Oh, Lord. Oh, my gosh. I think from the Jets' perspective, I think everybody's been so hyped up on Rodgers and whatnot. Like, anything else is just a letdown at this point, whether that's advisable or not. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's a bad second option for the Jets to wind up landing on. But like you said, the quarterback market is not extremely large this year, but there are a lot of teams that have a lot of demand. So he's got a lot of places to go. I think Tennessee would be weird for Carr. You're downgrading in terms of weapons. Like, outside of Derrick Henry, what is that team's wide receiver core?
But the team is not built around that. That's the reason why they've got the wide receivers that they've got. That's the reason why AJ Brown never got paid, is because of the way the team is built. It's specifically built around the running back. Go on.
I don't know if I'll always agree with that in the long term. It works in that Derrick Henry's so great, but
not in today's NFL. That's why. In today's NFL, it's not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's tough. Go on, Mike. Sorry.
Yeah, I think the Saints, like you said, the Saints is interesting. I think getting him going to the NFC would be pretty interesting. But I think a lot of people like kind of poo-poo his time over in Vegas. Like, 9 years, like there was some great times. Like it was a lot of ups and downs, but I think he was a very serviceable quarterback, and he did, I would say, a pretty good job. I think it just reached to a point where this is as far as we can go with him, and after 9 years, it's time to move along. Everything kind of aligned for them to move along, but I don't think there should be this thing out there that he's, oh my God, he's such a bad quarterback. I think he can be a pretty quality quarterback, and there are a couple teams, circling back to the Jets, like they have those weapons there that I think he'd succeed really well.
Ian, finish us off with Derek Carr.
Yeah, I wanted to come back to what Mike was saying about the Jets and the whole Rodgers Carr comparison. I think that I don't think Mike was saying that it's one and then there's just such a significant drop. I think if Aaron Rodgers was the next quarterback of the Jets, your mindset is we're winning the AFC East. I mean, we have to remember that if not for the injuries, and I truly believe this, that if not for the injuries to Breece Hall, the left side of their offensive line, obviously Zach Wilson being as poor as he was a huge contributing factor to this. The Jets would have been a playoff team. They would have been the last team in the wild card spot instead of Miami. I have no doubts about that. If not, maybe even the 6th, they would have jumped the Chargers, or maybe even Baltimore. I think that it's for the Jets, if Derek Carr was their next quarterback, you're getting a guy who, if you would have substituted him for Zach Wilson for him at any point this season, they're a playoff team. And that is the argument that I think Woody Johnson is trying to get at here with the Jets, is that they're in a position to win now. They are not Super Bowl ready, but they're playoff ready. And if it's going to cost them, because right now it's going to cost you picks, it's going to cost you players, it's going to cost you whatever for Rodgers. It's just strictly going to cost you cap for Derek Carr. And Derek Carr right now, with the team is currently constructed, yes, they need more pass rush help. Yes, they can get a little better on the offensive line. But with him there, he can make the throws necessary to Garrett Wilson, to Denzel Mims, to CJ Uzomah, to the players that they need to spread the ball around to in order to be successful. Zach Wilson cannot. So that's why I don't think. Yes, from a Hollywood perspective, from the bright lights of New York, yes, it is a significant drop off between Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr. But in terms of what quarterback, at least in terms of that won't cost you the farm to get you to the playoffs, Derek Carr can probably get you there.
Finish it. All right, Mike, you wanted to say something? One more thing?
Yeah, I just want to add this in there also, the accountability side of it. Like Derek Carr, one thing that people will never knock him for is his leadership. Like he was a great face of the Raiders when he was there. He's a great leader and whatnot. I think just in general, for all the ability he has, Rodgers is certainly creating media firestorm lately and some media circuses around him for various different situations. And just purely starting off with his, iffy commitment with the Green Bay Packers. And then you turn to the Jets side of things. You saw all the media issues and everything out there with Zach Wilson and that press conference that may live in infamy depending on his future, where he didn't take accountability for the offense in that Patriots game. You won't get that with Derek Carr, and I think it brings a level of leadership that really greatly benefits the Jets, and maybe they haven't had in a while.
Yeah, 100%. And not only that, too. Again, you're bringing in someone who has not had a lot of playoff success, but again, you're probably bringing in someone who can, exactly what Ian said, just get you over that hump. Right. And I would not be surprised with the team that Robert Saleh and company have built. This is a team that is right on the cusp of making the playoffs. I truly believe it. And you know what? I'll be honest with you. And a lot of Denver fans, we're going to get to Denver in a few moments. But Nathaniel Hackett, I believe, is back in his element where he doesn't have to make the play. Like, he doesn't have to be under the spotlight making those big time calls, where the bright lights are on him and the media's on him and everything along those lines. Now he's out of that spotlight. And I'm assuming that he probably will call the plays on the offensive side of things. And you know what? That's fine. Let him do that. But he's going to be on the outskirts as opposed to being, all the cameras shining to him and everything like that. And I think, in the first few weeks of the season, I believe the bright lights will be shined upon him. But as the season goes forward and all of the Denver stuff goes, farther and farther in the rearview mirror, I believe that he will get back into his own, just like Green Bay's Nathaniel Hackett was. Which is also why I'm still on the Aaron Rodgers train, because I believe that they brought him in. Not only is he a good offensive coordinator, but they also brought him in to lure Aaron Rodgers, or potentially, try and get that old relationship to now be over in East Rutherford.
They tried it with Denver, it failed.
Yeah.
They tried it with Denver, it failed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, Joey, is that the whole reason why they brought Nathaniel Hackett to Denver was to bring Aaron Rodgers with him. So I mean, you hope second time around it works, but I mean, this is it for Joe Douglas. I mean, it's playoffs or bust, man. Anything less than playoffs for the Jets next year, they clean house and start over again.
Yeah, so, I mean, and that would be, in my opinion, that would be the absolute worst thing, because again, you have to see where the problem lies, and it lies above Joe Douglas. But again, this is a problem that the Jets have had for so many years. There are times when it's not the general manager's fault. And at this point in time, it really is not the general manager's fault in Joe Douglas. I stand behind him fully, but does ownership stand behind him? I don't know if they can't get it done this year. I think it will, but it's just a matter of which veteran quarterback comes to New York. Guys, let's keep on rolling here. We're already an hour in, and we're just getting finished with the NFL. Denver obviously hired Sean Payton as their new head coach a few weeks ago. Pretty cool stuff there. But Vic Fangio was hired as the defensive coordinator in Miami, as opposed to, from some of the rumors that we heard, that Sean Payton kind of had Vic Fangio right along his side to be the defensive coordinator. Now, it would have been a little odd, especially with Vic Fangio going back to old roots in Denver. Keep in mind, he was the head coach there for a bit and pretty much got ran out of town. So, now that he's not available, if you will, all eyes have turned to former defensive coordinator for the Ravens, former head coach for the Jets and the Bills, and current ESPN television personality and analyst Rex Ryan. Is his time past, Mike Szabo, or does his style work for Denver despite them cleaning house last year, i.e. Bradley Chubb and company?
I just think it's been too long. Like he's been out of the game for quite a long time. I get obviously he's still around it in terms of reporting and being an analyst and whatnot, but I just think it's been too long, and I don't think Denver can really afford to mess about too much. We've spoken about it before. They've gone all in. They've traded the house for Russell Wilson. They now traded picks to bring in the coach and Sean Payton. I don't know if you'd want to bring in Rex Ryan. Was it 7+ years out of retirement? I think that's
out of a job, if you will, out of a job.
Yeah, out of a coaching job. So I mean that's very slippery waters. I think it's better for Denver not to go down. Just go someone who's in the league, who I guess is fairly established, you could say, and can have develop that pedigree to improve, to take over from Fangio and keep that defense as strong as it has been the last couple of years.
Ian, I got to throw this over to you. Obviously, Rex Ryan has a very aggressive defensive style. Worked very well in Baltimore. We know how it worked with him, with T. Sizzle, with Terrell Suggs, with Haloti Ngata. It worked with Ray Lewis. It worked a little bit with the Jets, and it pretty much fizzled out with the Bills. Is Rex Ryan beyond his prime, or does he rejuvenate himself with the Patrick Surtains of the world?
I'm not so sure. I'm kind of in the same boat with Mike here. It's like when you start bringing guys out of the broadcast booth, it's very, very interesting to see if they can start to relate again a little bit when they've been out for so long. And listen, there's no discounting Rex Ryan's merits when he was the defensive coordinator for the Ravens. Yeah. And obviously what got him the head coaching job for the Jets, and his aggressive style between him and Greg Williams, and really blitzing the quarterback and running all those aggressive packages at the opposition. You obviously have a very talented defensive team in Denver. The other name that's been out there right now is Vance Joseph, who really struggled to do anything right as the head coach for the Arizona Cardinals. And before that, he actually has some ties to the Broncos. He was the DC with the Broncos, I believe it was, from 2016 until 2018.
He was also the DC too. He went back to Arizona too. He was the defensive coordinator under Cliff Kingsbury too, right, in Arizona. Yeah.
Right. So it's, I think the one thing that they did is they allowed their current, this past year's defensive coordinator now to ship off to Carolina. Yep. And now work with Frank Reich over there. So I think it kind of puts Sean Payton in a little bit of a tough spot, right? It's, he could probably turn anywhere he wants, but in terms of the available pool and what's out there, I'm not so sure, Rex would be the right move, nor would Vance Joseph be the right move. But I guess if you want to go off reputation, sure. I guess, you could throw Rex out there for a year and see what happens. But at the same time, it's also something that could blow up in Denver's face if it doesn't go too well. I think everything for the Broncos for 2023 especially is built on on getting Russell Wilson right. Having a healthy Jerry Jeudy, having a healthy Courtland Sutton, having healthy options, Javonte Williams, all these players that they have the ability to get the ball to offensively, so that this way they're just flat out outscoring teams. Because, if that hasn't been the Sean Payton way for years, I don't know what's been. Maybe it's, to get Rex in there, you got a little bit of a figurehead, but I'm not too in love with any of the options right now that Denver has for DC.
Okay. Well, there is a lot of wondering who will be the defensive coordinator there, who will be the defensive coordinator in Philadelphia too. So now they've got some competition, Denver, that is. So I'm very intrigued to see what goes down there in Denver, because Sean Payton, his those options, if you will, are beginning to dwindle. Wild stuff. So let's keep on rolling here, and let's go to Major League Baseball before we conclude with hockey. Well, Major League Baseball, of course, pitchers and catchers reported a few days ago. Pretty cool stuff, obviously, and like I said, as Aaron Boone decided to make the call, and he said, "All right, guys, let's go to Tampa." That's where Mike and Aaron are going. We heard, Mike, about, give or take a few days ago, that Frankie Montas, the deadline acquisition from the Oakland Athletics a season ago, needs shoulder surgery and is quote-unquote likely done for the year. But then later reports came out saying that best case scenario would be second half of the year. Where does that number 5 replacement come from? Does it come from in-house, or does it come through the organization? I'll throw it to you. How mad are you that Frankie Montas is out, Mike?
I guess it's frustrating, right? I mean, this was a deal. I mean, for Cashman, you gave up a lot, right? You gave up your number 3 prospect in the system, as well as other guys. You thought that the shoulder concerns were over after he came back a couple weeks before the deadline, and you took a risk, and now it's completely blown up in your face. It's quite frustrating. I don't know if I guess you obviously ultimately put blame on Cashman because the buck stops there in terms of making these kind of trades and whatnot. But injuries, suck. And I mean, it's really frustrating and really disappointing. Like, this was a solid pitcher that they gave up quite a bit for in order to, be a real strong piece to the rotation, whether it was the second half of last year that we never really got to see because the shoulder clearly was still bothering him, and now we won't get to see possibly for most of the season, if at all. So it's just a shame that a big deal like that, you don't care about making those big swings if they yield dividends, but it really hurts and is really annoying when it doesn't.
Well, Ian, where do you see the replacement coming from? Is it a Domingo Germán if he stays, behaved? Or is it someone out of the organization with the slowly dwindling farm system that the team's got?
Yeah, I'm not sure still who's really out there right now for the Yankees to acquire a la free agency. I know Michael Wacha just signed a deal. So he's off the market. I mean, my concern for the Yankees after losing Montas, and let's not forget, Nestor Cortez is also hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the expectation.
He's throwing on a mound today. He's throwing on a mound. He's fine.
I'm telling you, Mike Szabo and Rob DeLuca got to get into like a room together and discuss what constitutes fine. It's between Nestor Cortez and Jack Hughes. I don't know who's fine more.
Oh God.
But I mean, it's got to raise some eyebrows, right? I mean, I know Mike wants to sit here and jump off a cliff as usual.
Yeah, yes, of course.
But, and the hope is Cortez is going to be Nestor's going to be ready to start Game 3. The Giants, I will be there. No, that's a concern. It's can Severino stay healthy? That's another. I mean, 3, 4, 5 right now for the Yankees is. I mean, you don't want to call Nestor a question mark, but as long as he's coming off some sort of injury, there's a question mark. So outside of Garrett and Rodon, I mean, there's questions littered throughout right now. I mean, I'm expecting Cortez to be ready for opening day, but I still think with the health a concern there slightly. There's definitely some back end concerns for the Yankees going into, at least from a rotation perspective, going into 2023.
Again, Mike, again. And there has been some chatter too also that it might not only be Domingo Germán, it could also be Clark Schmidt, who could be coming in kind of as the opener if that is needed for number 5.
Yeah, I think it's going to be for now. There'll be a competition for the number 5 starter. Whoever wins out between Germán and Schmidt, whoever looks better in spring training and whatnot. I think there's a case for both. But yeah, I think if there are any injury issues, they'll throw Schmidt into the opener spot. I would be a lot more concerned about the Yankee offense. I think they would be able to piecemeal the rotation if need be. Obviously, if you have 3 of those pitchers go down, that's a different story. I think 1 or 2 they can navigate for a short amount of time. But yeah, I think it's between those two. They're not going to go out and get anybody from outside, and especially at this point of the year, there really isn't anybody. I think they're confident with whatever options that they have in house. It's not as much as last year, but I think certainly it's going to be a competition between Herman and Schmidt.
Unbelievable stuff to see what's going on with the Yankees. And I guess now you look at it and you say to yourself, well, the trade was kind of a dud. But hey, listen, with what Seattle gave up for Luis Castillo last year, you couldn't have, you were not giving up Volpe, Dominguez plus to get this pitcher, even though he has looked lights out in Seattle. And we saw it time in and time again last year after the deadline when he was traded to Seattle. And I'm very intrigued to see what happens there. But the Yankees, obviously, they turned to Montas, who at the time was the number 2 pitching prospect, or rather pitcher, the number 2 pitcher, in terms of power and health and whatever it was. But clearly the health part did not roll over into 2023 for Montas. Let's keep moving forward here, and we'll go to the AL West first before we head back to the AL East, as we've kind of seen what a lot of these teams are doing this year anyway, going out west, come back east, and then go west anyway. Jacob deGrom and the Texas Rangers, LOL. There's another injury concern, Ian Schraier. What a shock. He's shut down for a few weeks. According to GM Chris Young, he's okay. But this is all quote unquote precautionary. Is this precautionary, or this is something that Texas Rangers fans are going to have to just inhale and exhale for however long and gasp for air for however long this contract is?
Did Ray Ramirez get hired as the head athletic trainer for the Texas Rangers yet?
I think he did.
Brutal.
Mike has no idea who that is.
I can't stop laughing about this stuff. I don't want to sit here and say he's Texas's problem now. Listen, every Met fan wanted to see him locked up long term, but we knew that this was the deep exhale moment for Met fans was that, when he decided not to re-sign with the Mets and signed with Texas, you knew the injury risk was still there. That at some point during spring, it was this time last spring training when he went out for his first start. And John Heyman, I remember, was reporting he's throwing 99, 100 miles an hour with ease. And then 24 hours later, he's being shut down. This is going to be something that Texas is going to have to, live and die by. You acquired Jacob deGrom to be your undisputed ace. You signed him to a very, very big contract at a lot of AAV. For him to be the star of your rotation, there's a reason that the Phillies and the Texas Rangers are the opening game of the 2023 Major League Baseball season. The hope was you were going to get Nola and deGrom, and the likelihood is you might not get deGrom. So this is something that as Met fans are exhaling, even though they'll have their own worries to deal with in terms of age and wear and tear with Verlander and Scherzer. But this just continues to be a repetitive issue for Jake.
I mean, well, now you look at it and you say to yourself, well, instead of getting Nola and deGrom, you're going to get Nola and Yankees legend Andrew Heaney instead. What a fantastic consolation prize. Mike, all joking aside, though, this is a bad start. This is a bad start for Jacob deGrom already. And what's the durability like if he can't be healthy February 17th? What's he going to be like in September?
Yeah, I mean, precautionary is hardly ever precautionary sometimes when it comes to this stuff. And I'm sure
bring out the cliff. Go on.
Fan have been hearing that for several times over the last couple of years. Oh, it's just precautionary. Yeah, it turns into a half a season long voyage of injuries and whatnot. He just has not been able to stay healthy. I remember time and time again last year, Joey, we were talking about the way deGrom pitches, and that's really sustainable. Is that really sustainable long term for him to have a long career? And
yeah,
it's looking like no. I mean, sure, the contract is there and whatnot, but I don't know. Durability is just it looks like it's going to be such a huge concern for him. Most of these last couple of years into his late 30s has just been a mess in terms of injuries, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. And Texas took the big swing. And I think they're going to have a lot of issues with his health, and they're just going to have to work around it and hope they can get him healthy for some sort of time to make that contract worth it.
Well, the positive thing, though, for Texas, again, you look at their pitching depth, and it's a lot better than what they had in years past. And really, even when Texas went to the World Series, what was that, Ian? Maybe 12 years ago? I think it was 2011 they went, 2011, 2012?
2011 and I think 2013, right?
Right, exact. Yes. So you look and really they only had like a solid 1 through 4. Here they have with DeGrom on paper, a decent 1 through 5. You also have Nate Eovaldi, John Gray, who did really well in Colorado, where, Colorado pitchers go to die pretty much. And he did pretty good there. Andrew Heaney, of course, we talk about him. He'll be the number 8, the number 19 starter. Jake Odorizzi, Martin Perez as well. So they've got a decent amount of depth there, which is a solid thing. But again, they also yearn for that number 5 spot if DeGrom is out for a long period of time. But as of right now, we'll see what precautionary means. But, moving further west, guys, Mike Trout, they asked him, the media, that is, what his goals were in Anaheim. And he said, obviously, to make the playoffs. And also there were some rumblings, too, that, he didn't say it in exact words, but to convince Shohei Ohtani to stay. Mike, I'm going to ask you this. Is he wasting his time, or is it a foregone conclusion that Shohei Ohtani is gone?
I mean, I think it's something that he has to do, right? He has this next season to try and convince him to stay in an Angels jersey, to re-sign long-term, that there is a project here that they can build to be a winning team, a playoff caliber team, led by them too. So I mean, I wouldn't say it's wasting time. It's something that he has to do. He's got a year to do to recruit, and certainly for his own sake, he'd want to see the team win. And he really, really yearns for the playoffs. This is one of, if not the best player of this generation that has never been able to see the lights of October because of everything else around him. And he has a guy in Ohtani that's just as great of a star power as him, and trying to build out the rest of this team. You want to build something sustainable, and I mean, there's no better way than to start off with those two. I don't think he's wasting his time, but it's just really depends. Are the Angels really going to throw him the sort of money that he'll be looking for?
Yeah, I don't know. That's really, really, and not only that too, but also he wants to win too. I think all these guys want to win, and the problem also is that the Angels are not winning. And I think also signing Philadelphia Phillies legend Matt Moore is not the definition of winning, Ian Schraier.
Neither is signing getting Yankee legends Gio Urshela and Brandon Drury either. It's no, I mean, I think Mike Trout almost has to kind of drink his own tea here, because Mike Trout is a guy who has failed to stay healthy now for a number of seasons.
Yeah.
And that has been a big reason. I don't want to say the only reason, because the Angels just find ways to get worse and worse. But certainly a driving factor as to why this team continues to sit close to, I mean, because obviously Oakland will be in the cellar, but close to the cellar of the American League West, or finish under 500 and just miss the playoffs outright. Of everything we've been reading about Ohtani of late is that it seems like he wants to stay West Coast. I mean, we don't know that for sure. Obviously, you want to sit here and you want to drive yourself crazy over everything you read with articles of saying, oh, because we're not even at the 2023 offseason yet. We haven't even started the 2023 season, and we're already, wondering where the big ticket items like Ohtani and Machado and Soto and all these guys are going to go next year. For Ohtani, I mean, at least the initial statements are that, even though none of it has come from Ohtani's camp, is that he wants to stay West Coast. So, I mean, if he doesn't want to stay in Anaheim, you could take a drive down the road and go compete for a World Series with a team that's won one recently and is constantly in the discussion for making a World Series. So, can Trout keep him there? I mean, the guy wants a lot of money. I mean, Artie Moreno for a while was talking about selling the team. It seems like he's staying. There's just a lot of question marks surrounding that ball club in terms of stability and in terms of, I mean, is he going to become the next Mike Trout, Ohtani? Does he see himself as saying, do you want to become what Trout has become, even though he stayed loyal? And I give him all the credit in the world for staying loyal to that franchise and that fan base and saying, I'm going to win here. I'm going to win here. I'm going to lose here. We're going to do it together. But this guy has failed to stay healthy either.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of instability there with the Angels, and that would be, that would not cause me to leave, but that would be high priority number one before I start talking any dollars and cents with that ball club.
Well, keep in mind also, too, guys, is that when Shohei Ohtani came over from Japan, he spurned the Yankees, he spurned the Mets, he spurned the Red Sox, he spurned a lot of these big market teams, including the Dodgers, too, because he did not want the spotlight. Do we remember that? Remember that, everybody? When he did not want to be in the spotlight. So he chose the Angels because, sure, it was Los Angeles, it was West Coast, it was, I guess you can call it close to home, as opposed to, New York. But the Angels are pretty much the baby brother to the Dodgers, and they always will be. So kind of, he took a back seat here, and he decided, all right, well, we're gonna go to LA, to Anaheim rather, and we're gonna go play in Disneyland. That's what we're gonna do. But again, if he decides that Anaheim is not it, where does he go?
Seattle. I don't know if they put up the money for it, but that's,
I think the team that would be kind of interesting. I mean, we could sit here and talk Mets. Padres. You want to talk about West Coast? San Diego has had no issue, but the team that I was thinking about was San Francisco.
Yeah,
this is a team that was outed already with Correa, with re-signing Rodon, with signing Nimmo, with signing just about every big free agent that they wanted, they didn't get. Mm-hmm. And now they have a whole, it's a no cap league, but this is a team that expressed surely a lot of interest in signing guys to $300 million contracts. So San Francisco would be very high on my list.
Keep in mind also, they had just lost Rodon too. And they also lost Giants legend Johnny Cueto as well.
Oh. You're forgetting the biggest legend, Arson Judge.
That is true. That is true. I forgot about Arson Judge too. Yes. They have not had a solid rotation in a very long time. And I remember when they had Jeff Samardzija on there as well. Remember that, Ian? And they had a decent legend. Exactly. They had a decent 1 through 3, 1 through 4.
Yeah, with Lincecum and Zito and
right.
Was that a little bit later?
No, not yet. No. Zito and Lincecum was long before that. You had Samardzija, who they had traded from Oakland to the Cubs, and then the Cubs to San Francisco.
Who was part of that rotation that I'm missing?
I believe it was Cueto also, because it was Cueto there too. They never made the postseason, but it was a decent rotation. Now, the last time that they had a solid rotation, led off by, of course, Madison Bumgarner. Yeah. And right now their number one is Logan Webb. And again, I'm not saying that he's not bad. He's good. He's good, but you want someone like a Shohei Ohtani who could potentially highlight that staff. And I don't think Alex Wood or Anthony DeSclafani would be the guys to do that. Reds legend DeSclafani, by the way.
Well, Alex Wood he's now a couple of years older. This was the team that only a couple of years ago won 100+ games with Gabe Kapler's, managing in his first year. And last year they kind of fell off a cliff a little bit more. They just could not repeat I wouldn't say fall off a cliff. They just missed the playoffs, but I think they were just under 500 actually, or maybe just over. But, it's interesting now. You're a couple of years removed from that. Can you kind of bounce back? If you're the Giants, now that all these key free agents, including Judge, like Mike had mentioned, had passed you up. So it's an interesting year for San Francisco. I still kind of see them finishing kind of on the cusp of the playoffs, where they're just don't have enough to get themselves there in comparison to the teams right now that are projected to be in the playoffs. Well, I just don't see. In the Central, if the San Francisco Giants were in the National League Central, they're contending for that division. But now you're putting them in the West. With the Padres and the Dodgers, and I think even the Diamondbacks might be a little bit better this year, where the Giants are going to have that division continually beats itself up.
Yeah.
So it's a tough sell for the Giants this year because Jock Peterson's a year older. Yankee legend Thairo Estrada, a year older. But you still have, can Wilmer Flores continue to perform at a high level? I mean, we're going to get out of Mike Yastrzemski. Yes, Mets legend Wilmer Flores. I know where you were
going. No. I was going to talk about Mets legend Michael Conforto. What about him?
Oh, you're really going to go there?
Oh, I went there.
Oh, you sure did.
I went there, and I even ignited it with more.
He'll hit you a solid 260, seventh inning or later. Just be lucky if he'll hit 185.
There you go. That's it.
That's all I'll tell you.
Guys, let's keep rolling here. And Tampa Bay, you had former Phillies pitcher Zach Eflin, who, by the way, signed the largest contract in Tampa Bay Rays history, I believe, or as for a pitcher in Tampa Bay's history. Zach Eflin was asked to describe the state of the Tampa Bay rotation, and he said, "quote unquote, nasty." Okay. Mike, do you agree with nasty when you look at the rotation that's anchored by Shane McClanahan?
Yeah, I think it all depends on health. I mean, Tyler Glasnow and Shane McClanahan are, that's a really good 1-2 punch to start off with. It's just really been about health. I think Glasnow came back for the last September or late August or whatever.
After he had Tommy John, yeah.
Yeah, the Tampa Bay didn't really get to have a full season of him, and he did pretty well in that wild card game. Remember, that just seemed like it would never end.
Yeah,
and then Cleveland wound up coming up with the walk-off.
I remember texting you about that. I remember texting in the group about that game that said, it would never end. It would never end. And I remember you had to go to class or something like that, and you said, let it end. And I said, no, let's just keep it going to like 27 innings just to piss off Mike. Yeah, go on.
But yeah, I mean, now you're hopefully going to get a full season out of Tyler Glasnow. Shane McClanahan started the All-Star game last year.
Yep.
So that's a great 1-2 punch to start off with. And the rest of the way, they always seem to figure it out there. You got Jeffrey Springs there, Drew Rasmussen. They signed Eflin. Like they've got solid guys, and we've seen the track record of Tampa Bay with Kevin Cash over the last couple of years. The bullpen's strong. They seem to piece it together one way or another. So I think it's all about health.
Ian, do you agree with that? And then I guess kind of a follow-up to that, I'll throw this one at you too. Kevin Cash also says that this is one of his deepest teams, and he does not have to worry about depth this season like how he's had to in the past.
I agree with Mike with respect to the status of the Rays rotation, but again, like Mike was saying, it's contingent on Shane McClanahan repeating last year, Tyler Glasnow returning to form. I think Zach Eflin is fine in the role of asking him to be a 3-starter like he was for the most part as a 3-4 guy in Philadelphia. The back end again is, has some questions. I mean, maybe they start turning to Luis Patino, who they got, in the trade with San Diego. Maybe that's an option that they turn to, but they find ways to. I'm not really disagreeing with anything Mike says here. I think he really hit the nail on the head. They find ways to piece it together. They've got enough options in terms of within their lineup. I mean, yes, they are a poverty franchise, but they just continue to hit on young players. A la Rosarena, and you go down and Wander Franco and those type of players that make the Rays competitive. It's the AL East is an interesting division this year. It really is. The Red Sox appears they're in complete rebuild. The Orioles should be a little bit more competitive. You can make the argument, are the Toronto Blue Jays finally going to overcome this horrible jinx that it seems like they have every single year? And then you've got the Rays and you've got the Yankees. Obviously the Yankees should be the front runners for the division again. No reason to think with Judge returning that they won't be. But also we discussed earlier about their rotation issues and what they're going to do on the back end if they can't stay healthy. If they do stay healthy, I think the division will probably be close to a runaway. I really do. The Blue Jays just constantly walk into their own problems, and their starting pitching is still very, very suspect in my opinion. I think the Rays will be right there in the wild card discussion come October again.
Well, we'll have to see what goes on there. There's a lot of things there in terms of a lot to dissect with the term nasty when it comes to Tampa Bay, because they have the ability to do so, but last year was not great. But again, as Mike and Ian said, the health was not great. Glasnow came back later in the season, and can you really bank on Shane McClanahan to have that Cy Young type season that he had last year? Don't know. Don't expect it to. Let's finish off Major League Baseball with some of those rule changes. We brought up about the pitch clock, the extra inning ghost runner made permanent, which is not in effect for the postseason. And it's crazy, guys, because I saw that. I was watching some college baseball earlier today, and I saw the pitch clock, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that, where now you've got a lot of these guys. They now have to adjust to the pitch clock. They have to adjust to the shift band and also the ghost runner. I'm going to start off with Mike just because it just gives me comedy looking at Mike there. And Mike, is this the way you were yelling at Rob Manfred and company when they said, all right, we're going to do the ghost runner forever?
Does Mike even remember when the Ghost Runner came into existence? Was he old enough?
I don't think so.
Nope. I like it. It grows on me. I give a hats off to Manfred. I like the Ghost Runner. It's grown on me over time. It really has. I don't mind not the whole caveat of not having it for the postseason. That's fine. We play 162 games, people. Let's get it over with. I'm sure the players are happy about it when you don't have to
instant gratification
or whatever. And then the next day for a day game, we just played a 15-inning game, and then the next day we wind up having to come back for a day game or whatnot. I remember listening to when Buster Olney earlier this week was jumping on with on the Michael K show talking about all of this, and they said this is like a front office person's dream, because they're like the amount of maneuvering you'd have to do if you get into an extra inning game and roster maneuvering. It's absolutely ridiculous. So this is fantastic. And to me, you have 162 regular season games. End it. You haven't got it in 9. You haven't got it in 9 innings. You couldn't win the game in 9 innings. You had all those chances. Just end it.
You know what he sounds like? Ian? He sounds almost like my mother. Just end it. I want to go home.
Well, supposedly he leaves games early because he has to go catch a train. So I don't.
Oh man, Ian, I need to hear your thoughts on this, Ian.
And one more thing, also, I think on the other thing, the other rule change too at the pitch clock. I think the other caveat they made in there that the batters have to be back within the batter's box within 10 seconds or something.
That's correct.
That rule actually started last year. They weren't able to necessarily step out.
Then it's a delay of game, and then it's a strike.
Right. Yeah. Where to begin here? I guess let's start with Mike's infatuation with the Ghost Runner. I'm fine with incorporating it. Just have a couple of regular extra innings before we do that. I don't buy this. Mike clearly does not watch enough baseball when you've got because to me, I grew up at a time where I love the pitcher's duel. To me, like if you have two guys, like if you go back to the 2016 wild card game, I'm not even going that far back. I'm going back to when Mike was 5 years old. The 2016 National League wild card game, and you had Noah Syndergaard and Madison Bumgarner battling it out, not giving up a thread of anything. I was in the house for it for 8 innings straight. It was beautiful to watch. Beautiful to watch, because that is really what pitching and baseball is all about. I had conversations about this last week, just with respect to all these new rules, and I said, you're trying to attract an audience, okay, of people who just don't want to watch baseball.
Mike.
Well, Mike loves baseball, but like he's part of a very small, like the number of people, like just working for myself on a college campus and talking to individuals who just have no interest in watching Major League Baseball whatsoever. They're going to tune into football. They're going to watch the NBA. Some might have some hockey interest. Like baseball is going to remain where it is. It's going to remain an us generation and older sport that wants to be watched. I really don't see this. This was all started by Rob Manfred as a way to shorten the time of the game. That's all it was to intrigue young fans to say, we're going to give you an opportunity, because most of these kids today didn't grow up to watch the 98 home run chase, right? They didn't grow up to watch the steroid era, to watch every ball leave the ballpark just on just one little swing of a bat. Now what we have to do is we have to try to make up for it, right? We have to ban the shift. I'm all for it. We have to find a way to reduce the amount of these extra inning games. We have to find a way to speed up so that we don't have any more Chicago Cubs legend Steve Traxels of the world that took 3 hours when runners were on base. Mike has no clue who that is.
He has no idea. He has no idea. I love it.
Like it's like, to me, baseball is is the one sport. What I love about baseball is that baseball is the one sport that doesn't work off a clock, right? You have 27 outs, barring extra innings. You have 27 outs to win a game. It's about sacrificing. It's about, when to hit and run, when to institute this, when do I bring this pitcher, when do I bring this left-handed specialist out of the bullpen? The strategy of baseball is what makes the game so sweet. It's really what made me fall in love with it. Whereas now we're in a situation where you've got 20 seconds if there's 30 seconds if there's no one on base, 15 seconds if a runner's on first, this much time if a runner's on second, this much time if you're coming out of the bullpen. It's this much time to throw a pitch if a runner's still coming on the field, like if a fan's coming on the field. Like it's gotten to be too much. It's taken away a little bit too much from the integrity of the game. The one thing I'm okay with is the banning of the shift. To me, I find it asinine that these hitters get robbed, because these fans do not pay tickets to come and watch Mike Trout drop a bunt down the third baseline. Okay. People do not come to watch Aaron Judge drop a bunt down the third baseline. If you can't make the right pitch to get a hitter like Aaron Judge out, sorry, guess what? He's going to take you deep. I could live with that. Okay. Like, that kind of stuff drives me crazy, even as a Met fan, to watch players who I think should have base hits get robbed. And then what makes it even worse, the caveat, is that it drives me nuts when I see the seeing eye single go between the third baseman and the second baseman. Like, that gets through. But if I hit a P at the second baseman that should be in the right center field gap, he catches it because he's standing, 10 feet out in the outfield. That's my one exception to the rule here. Otherwise, all these new rule changes, they're all for the birds as far as I'm concerned.
Well, let's see. Of course, our good friend Brian Morales says, thanks, Ian, for representing us old-timers. How can you not get romantic about baseball after hearing Ian's words? Simply epic. I definitely have to give my kudos to be there, because I agree there, and I can't stand what the younger generation, aka the Mike Szabos of the world, have to say about it in terms of the Ghost Runner. I hate the Ghost Runner. I think it might be the stupidest thing ever. And
then we don't incorporate it for playoffs.
Exactly. Wow. Great. That's awesome. But you know what? But then there might be a point where Mike might say, oh, but let this game end. And it's the World Series game number 6 and the title's on the line. Let this game end. Mike, would you say that?
No, I wouldn't.
Such a liar.
Exactly.
No, but look, and the Ghost Runner, I'll compromise with this. If they would put it to, well, only implemented in the 12th inning, fine, I could compromise with that.
But does Major League Baseball, and I'm sorry to cut you off, Mike, but because really whatever Mike can say here will make no sense whatsoever in comparison to what you and I are trying to say here. Love you to death, Mike. Do they understand?
He needs the pacifier in order to make it make sense.
To a certain degree, do they understand that they extended the time of baseball games by incorporating the universal DH? Right? Think about how long pre-universal DH American League games were to National League games, right? American League games, the average was like 3:30, 3:45 because you had the DH, whereas in the National League, the average time might have been about 3:10.
Because you get the pitchers out quick.
Correct. So they realize that even though you're trying to bring fans to the ballpark by putting another impact bat in your lineup, you've also extended the end time of the baseball game.
Yeah, but at least you have a competent hitter rather than watch a
pitcher. I don't disagree with you, but that goes against what Rob Manfred was trying to do to a certain degree.
Yeah, he knows you can reduce time in other ways. I say the comparison with the Ghost Runner rule is look at hockey when they have a regular season game. You have a 3-on-3 overtime for 5 minutes. If not, you have a shootout, you have a conclusion and whatnot. In the playoffs, you have regular periods and whatnot, 20-minute overtime periods until we have a winner. It's similar, comparable to baseball. You had your 27 outs to win the game. Now, just win the damn game, sacrifice bunt, get a sac fly, let's go home.
Let's go home.
That's what baseball's about now. So that's what baseball's about now. Bunt them over and sacrifice them in. That's what. So let's do that for 5 innings straight until we have a clear winner whoever hits the ball over the fence. Right. That's that. Oh my!
You children. I can't stand it.
Push an inning or two more. Push it till the 12th inning, but fine. I'll be fine with that. But at some point, we got to have a conclusion rather than these 5-hour games going to 15.
I'd like to see how many games have gone that long.
Yeah, but I want to reduce the possibility of that. I want it 0. I don't,
You want it 0? Okay. I'll
tell you, Mike's retention rate as commissioner would be terrible.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It would be about 20 minutes.
The owners love this, so they would retain me.
Yeah, I'm sure the owners love it. You know what they love? Money. That's what they love. My uncle says, no clock, best thing about baseball, 27 ounce, get them if you can. Worst thing about baseball today, too many strikeouts. You used to hang your head in shame when striking out. Anyone want to respond to that?
I don't disagree. Again, this is the old timer in me who likes small ball. Like I was all for the incorporation of the universal DH because I like the idea of not having pitchers hit anymore. I mean, Jacob deGrom certainly made it entertaining for a time.
And so did Bartolo Colon too.
Sure did. In San Diego, no less. But
Mike has no idea who Bartolo Colon is, but go on.
Yeah, I agree with your uncle there without question, because like it was nice to watch small ball. It was nice to watch, your 4-2 ball games where I mean, I didn't grow up, decades earlier like members of my family did that, really experienced, the Juan Marichals, the Sandy Koufaxes of the world who, back when these guys had rubber arms and, went the full 11 or 12 innings if it took extra to decide games. There was really no bullpen,
Nolan Ryan too.
Yeah, the game has changed so much. But I agree. I think it's the small ball part of the game has really kind of gone to the wayside now with the incorporation of the universal DH. Even though I like it. But this is what Major League Baseball is now. These power hitters a lot of them are just all or nothing guys. This is what the steroid era did to baseball. And they're trying to recoup kind of that energy and what baseball was during that era without these guys shooting themselves up with anabolic steroids. Yeah. So baseball in 2023, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable. One more thing also, just to bring up Mike with my uncle too. He's also subscribed to your newsletter too. Keep that in mind. He subscribed to Mike Szabo's newsletter where he gets to see the infamous beard, basically, in a black and white newspaper. It's just black beard here. That's all. And that's what he sees there with you. So pretty good stuff. And also Brian Morales B says bunt derby to win extras. Yeah, hey, listen, that wouldn't be bad too, but I'm sure Mike would find it would not be happy with that.
Oh, I like that.
No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't be happy because but you know what? Yeah, but you know what? You know what though, Mike? Bunt derby could last 15 innings.
No,
I say we pull up MVP Baseball 2005 on the PlayStation.
Only because they never teach it in MLB.
Yes.
Play home run derby. Let's do it.
I am 100% in.
We all love home run derbies.
Oh God, Mike, you have no idea. Forget it. Never mind. Time
Mike,
out.
you were 4 years old when that video game came out.
Stop it. I would come home from elementary school while Mike was still in diapers playing that game. Keep that in mind, okay? Mike, just keep writing your newsletter, okay? All right.
All right. One other thing on the
old. It's unbelievable.
One of the things we're going to get to with the shift also, the banning of the shift. I think like the whole legislating out of the game, I think it could have been taken out naturally. Like it's a strategy to win a game. You take it out by hitting the other way and making a team look stupid.
You think that's going to change the game? Not a shot. Not a shot.
No.
Because that's why the people who like the shift are always like, just bunt the ball down the line. You think them bunting the ball down the line once a game, twice a game whatever it takes in a game that is completely contingent on power hitting is like if you're Aaron Boone and they're shifting Judge to the left side, okay, let's say he's just a pure pull hitter, and we know he's not, but let's say he was, and you're going up there in the 8th inning, okay, with runners on first and second, you're down by 1, and you just want Judge, and they're over shifting because the only base vacant is third base, and you want Judge to push a ball to the right side of the field.
I don't know. Don't bunt. You got to start. The hitting coaches have to start getting these guys to develop hitting both ways, and you won't have this.
It's harder than it looks. I mean,
I don't
agree with what you're saying, but I don't think it's a simple, hey, take a pill. Look, I can hit the other way. It's not how it works.
Oh man, guys, let's move forward here. We only have about 15 more minutes left. Again, alongside my guys Ian Schraier, Mike Szabo, Joey Jarzynka here. We thank all of our viewers and listeners. And again, if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, as well as Odyssey, and as well as Google Play Store, thank you all for making us a part of your Friday evening, guys. The Rangers, as much as I don't want to talk about them, we have to. There is last week we saw Vladimir Tarasenko. He scored a goal in his Rangers debut, which was a nice thing for Rangers fans. But now there is another rumor that, again, Vitaly Kravtsov has requested a trade from the Rangers. Again, do we really care, Mike?
I guess Rangers fans slightly do, but I think there's just been a lot of blame on both sides on how this situation has been going. His reintroduction back in after they call it the Russian holiday and whatnot, after he refused to go down to AHL a couple of years ago. This offseason he came back. He really worked his tail off. There was no media kind of circle around. It just hasn't really worked out, and he's been in and out of the lineup, shifted to different lines and whatnot that we could criticize Gerard Gallant about here and there for whatever. But I even though he requests a trade, there's not really much you're going to get. It's going to be a swap of another young player in a similar situation as Kravtsov, or some sort of very late pick, maybe. You're not really getting much there, but maybe it's just for his sake. Maybe a change of scenery is a little bit better, or maybe Gallant just tries to play him and, they play through this request and say, give it a little bit more of a chance and reevaluate in the offseason when he's a restricted free agent.
And the reason why I say who really cares is because this is not the first time he's requested a trade, Ian Schraier.
No, and his inconsistent play is the big reason why. I mean, I think into this year, I remember we'd had conversations over the last summer about, especially after the Eastern Conference Finals, about what the Rangers were going to do going forward, because we knew they didn't have the cap space to re-sign Kopp, to re-sign Vetrano, and to re-sign Mott, and obviously they all went elsewhere. And the discussion was these kids have to perform. These kids have to perform, or whatever you want to. Some people call it the boys to men line, whatever you want to call it now. And for Kravtsov, the reason is that, listen, I mean, when GG comes out and when Gallant comes out and talks about him, he says he works hard, he plays hard. He's just, he's just not playing consistent. And that's, and obviously that's been the key factor as to why he's not seeing as much time, I think, as people would like, because I think he came in with a lot of merits. The hope was that when his time was going to arrive in the NHL, that he was going to be a top 6 player for the Rangers. And they've tried. But obviously now the other piece to this is that is there a culture issue with him. Yeah. And, if anybody wants to trade for him, is this guy just going to bail for the KHL? Is he going to, are we going to give up more prospects for him than what we want? I mean, or the Rangers just going to have to, at this point, because he's not making much money, are they just going to have to cut bait? I mean, I think what the Rangers would like to do is like to find a way to maybe package him if they want to. I mean, if that's the plan and they feel that the future doesn't involve him, maybe you try to package him for a 4th-line player or try to package him in the offseason for something. I don't think they're going to get much value for him. So I think it's really up to Vitaly Kravtsov to decide what exactly he wants to do. it's not that all the eggs are kind of in his basket, but just that I think he's got one foot out the door to a certain degree. They're going to keep playing him if they feel that they need him. Right now he's the 13th forward. So I mean, they're going to get him in as he's needed, but at the same time, he's got a lot to prove, but he also to a certain degree has a foot out the door.
Yeah, absolutely. Go on, Mike. Finish us off.
No, yeah, totally agree. Ian said it perfectly. Like, it's been a ton of blame on all sides, but this season it's just been a poor play, and then just being in and out of the lineup. He had this stretch where 27 games in the early on in the year where he was there on the Panarin and Trocheck line. It just didn't work out. And it seems like it's there that now his head is down. He works hard and all. It's just not clicking. So whether it's now or later on, I don't know if his future with the New York Rangers will really be that long.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this one is not really a topic, but this is more of just a quick joke. But is Jack Hughes really fine, guys? Is he really okay? Is he fine?
I hope DeLuca's tuning in.
Is he fine? He's definitely not. He's watching the Islanders right now. But Jack Hughes apparently was week to week, and he is reportedly fine because he looks like he's good to go tomorrow, which is a good thing for Devils fans. Jack Hughes comes back from a week absence, and Lindy Ruff, for as long as he's been a head coach, all the way back from his time in Buffalo, he's always kind of elaborated the truth, if you will. So he did the exact same thing here, and said he's week to week, but he's only a week. And he did travel with New Jersey, which is a humongous boost for them. That they don't lose their second line center for an extended period of time. So that's a solid thing there. Our last topic before we go bye-bye for the night. This is always a fun topic, Mike, because we always talk about St. John's and we talk about how they lose a game almost against DePaul. They take down Providence. Then they lose, or they beat UConn. They lose to Seton Hall. They lose to Marquette. They lose to Xavier. They lose to Butler. But they can take these teams down, and now they've got Creighton tomorrow night. Mike, I got to start with you. How pumped are you for this game tomorrow? Because I tell you, I am ecstatic beyond belief.
Not really. After this team that you saw drop 104 points on you, I mean, not really. I mean, not really. I always thought the term when it comes overall to St. John's that I had always talked to our good old friend Anthony Tonatori when we were talking about the team. The most concise way that he put it is they're consistently inconsistent.
Yes.
I think that's the shortest way to put things about St. John's.
Lovely, nice with that consistently inconsistent, though. I got to tell you.
Yeah, like I said, like that's the shortest, sweetest way you could put it. That was like these two games. The past week is like that was like just a microcosm of it. Like the game against Providence, especially defensively, was probably the best conference game they've played all year in terms of the quality of the opponent and how they played or whatnot. And they followed it up. I mean, you'd think they'd want to build upon that defensive performance and whatnot. Maybe start stringing a win or two together. Sure, they got a win against DePaul, but my God, that was an ugly game. A double overtime. We almost thought we were going to triple overtime. I was almost starting to get the espresso machine running, and we were going to be up all night. I mean, goodness gracious, that game was like a train wreck and a half that somehow, some way, they came out on the right side of. And tomorrow night, I mean, the opening line came out that Creighton's 7.5 point favorites for tomorrow night, which I guess it's only because they're on the road, which otherwise I thought was a little low given the fact of how things went a couple of weeks ago between these two teams. But it's just a slow crawl, I think, to March and the Big East tournament and the ultimate end of the season for St. John's. And it's quite sad given like the expectations and or hopes of whether it was last year or this year.
Before we get to Ian, I need to just ask this question. I know Ian will get a kick out of this, and I know you said, Mike, you wanted to turn the espresso machine on. Do you think that there needs to be a ghost runner in overtime for college basketball just because you can't stay up past 1 a.m.?
Maybe a special circumstance needed to be made there. Come on.
I'm fine with the ghost runner just doing the jump ball, man. Just drop the ball, let the clock run for 5 minutes, just have it sit there. Maybe the ghost runner will show up.
Come on, we both watched that game, Joey. They had to. You could have made a special exception there.
That I was really hoping to go. I was hoping that game would go to 4 overtime just to see Mike's reaction. That would have been the greatest thing.
The stat was both teams combined to go 3 of 25 from the field in the overtime period. So.
And you would have loved it.
That's not one team. That's both.
Oh, I know. Oh, I'm well aware. Like I said, and you love it. Ian, I need your thoughts on this. Let's call it gorgeous piece of art called St. John's basketball.
No, you don't really need it. I mean, it's my stance on it really doesn't change week to week. Looking forward to being at Carnesecca tomorrow for the game against Creighton. Should be a good atmosphere and
bobblehead night.
Hopefully St. John's can avoid getting 100 dropped on them again at home, which they seem to do a good job of at least maintaining it at home. I would say that the bleeding is almost over for St. John's this year. There's only 2 more games, I think, on the docket, 3.
Yeah, 3.
Yes, and then the Big East tournament. So it looks like with the way things are standing, that the Paul rematch might be your 9:45 on Wednesday night at the Garden, which I'm sure Joey really, really wants to know.
They actually changed it. So it's no longer 4:37 and 9:55. It's now 3, 5, and 8. So now we expect still potentially a 9:45 start anyway, and then I'll be home around like 3 a.m. But hey, listen, it's better than 4 a.m., okay? Because, like I said, at that point, then we got to start getting the ghost runners too for Mike and all good things there. And also one more quick thing before we head to our kudos, guys. Last year when when Creighton was inside Carnesecca, Ryan Nemhard broke his wrist. Keep that in mind. And that threw off Creighton's entire March. Keep that in mind too. So we'll see what happens. If there's any
first round game though, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah, they were the 9, right?
Yep. So, we'll see how far they can go this year, but keep that in mind too, is that last year after that game, when they came in to Queens, they left shorthanded and it really affected their March. That's for sure. Cause they were Final Four. I believe they were Final Four bound. I think if they can keep doing it this year, keep moving this year, they will be a very, very, very scary 6 or even 5 seed in March. But we'll definitely have that conversation at a later date. Okay, so our show is officially done, guys. Let us go to our sports updates. Jim Caldwell, the former Detroit Lions head coach, was hired as a senior assistant for the Carolina Panthers under newly appointed head coach Frank Reich, and also Deuce Staley's role is officially announced as assistant head coach and running backs coach for Carolina. So the exact same, the exact same role in Carolina. Brian Morales, he's given it. Will Mike stay up is the question. I'm going to say probably not. I don't think so.
It's a 7:30 start. So if he doesn't stay up,
I mean, that's, his bedtime is like 8 o'clock anyway. So, we'll see.
Oh, right. He's got to get up for his 4 a.m. Workout call. So.
Oh, yes. Let's get to our kudos. Ian Schraier, your kudos goes to?
I was kind of teetering on this one, even though credit to Joe Shane for signing Isaiah Hodgins to an exclusive rights free agent contract that's going to cost them less than $1 million against the cap with a lot of space coming. My kudos go to Knicks president Leon Rose and all the apologies that are owed to that man after them wanting to trade for all the fans wanting them to trade for Donovan Mitchell in the offseason, and Jalen Brunson is playing like a complete all-star. So right now, I mean, the Knicks, if you want to use a word Mike used before, they're consistently inconsistent, but right now they're above that line right now to at least get into the play-in, if not maybe even be a 6 seed and be right into the first round of the NBA playoffs. So Leon Rose, apologies all around.
Yeah, and Mike, your kudos. I've been looking forward to this all week long because I know Ian just loves this kudos. Mike, it's all you.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Ian is going to love every second of this. We had a great moment in the last game for the New York Rangers on Wednesday night against the Vancouver Canucks, where Chris Kreider surpassed Mark Messier in all-time Rangers goals. So hats off, kudos to Chris Kreider, Mr. Inevitable. He's getting back to being hot, and now he surpasses Mark Messier.
Getting back to getting hot, I can name about 5 or 6 players that are more hot than he is, but go on.
Sure, but he has 22 goals this year, and
sure isn't 50.
Well,
go ahead.
My kudos, fellas, goes to the new voice of the Atlanta Braves from Bally Sports South, which probably will be bankrupt by tomorrow. But hey, listen, at least Brandon Gaudin will have a job, whether it be for Bally Sports or it'll be for the Atlanta Braves or whoever it is down south. Brandon Gaudin has been named the new voice to take over for Chip Correa with the Braves. So really good stuff there. And kudos to my guy, Brandon Gaudin. So we had a email conversation back and forth a few hours ago, and he's extremely grateful for the opportunity, and he'll be continuing with his work with Fox and Big Ten Network throughout the rest of basketball season. And he's also, keep in mind, too, the voice of Madden, too. For those that do not know, put in the disc for Madden or download the game of Madden and you'll hear his voice the last few years. So pretty cool stuff there. So that's who my kudos goes to, guys. Let's make sure we let all of our viewers know where they could find us on all the following platforms: Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Odyssey. And of course, if you'd like to see our beautiful faces, be sure to search the Eastern Observer on YouTube. And the same thing goes with our guys from the Essential Wrestling Podcast, who are on a hiatus right now. But of course, be sure to take a peek at some of the old episodes and some of the archives on the following platforms, of course: iHeartRadio, Odyssey, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play Store as well. And if you want to see their faces too, be sure to search Eastern Observer when you can. One final time, ladies and gentlemen, for Ian Schraier, Mike Szabo, I'm Joey Jarzynka saying so long, and we will see you all next week for the 110th episode of the Primetime Rundown. For all of us here at the Blackjack Media Group, we will see you next week.